So what does a piece of 2.5 millennia old wisdom have to do with teaching us how to be able to live a more meaningful, fulfilled, and happy life? Did Lao Tzu, a man who lived some 2,500 years ago, capture a way of thinking, a philosophy that can be the antidote to our ever-increasing complex and complicated lives? I believe that the 81 verses of the Tao Te Ching simply give us the ability to be able to find meaning, fulfillment, and happiness in our life. And it's my intention to share with you what I believe are the main insights and the relevance on our world today. Some 500 years before the birth of Jesus Christ, an enlightened man lived, Lao Tzu. What he did was he captured these 81 verses. These powerful 81 verses are said not only to be and discover the meaning of life, but also to be able to give us the ability to deliver and live a meaningful life. And that causes normally an element of intrigue. It normally causes one or two eyebrows to be raised in the room and a little bit of a smile, as so many of us today seek the desire to be able to find meaning, fulfillment, and happiness in our life. Actually, very little is known about this man, although he's recorded as being the record keeper at the court in the central Chinese Zhou dynasty in the 6th century BC, and an older contemporary of Confucius. Now, that could be true, but on the other hand, that may be an entirely mythical story which just simply gives birth to this amazing piece of ancient wisdom and this fabulous 81 verses. In my personal experience, I believe that actually our ability to find meaning and fulfillment and wisdom in the Tao Te Ching may well be true. So you all know a little bit about the Tao Te Ching. You might not necessarily know it's the Tao Te Ching when it's quoted. It features in so many of the stories and the memes and the social media that we see today. The verses that get drawn on the most, and this is the one that seems to get drawn on the most, verse 64, is the journey of 1,000 miles starts with a single step. It commits people to action. It's used in order to get them to focus, to be able to move forward, to try and achieve a goal. Verse 4 asks us to be able to think about our connection with nature, to be able to emulate it at all times, to be able to enter into that flow state and to be like nature in everything that we do. Verse 11 is possibly one of the most powerful verses in the Tao Te Ching. It says that you are all at the hub of a wheel with over 30 spokes. What that means for all of us is that actually it is connection. It is meaning. We are connected to all things and each other, and it puts relationships and our relationships at the heart of the Tao Te Ching, which means that it's our relationships with one another that are the meaning to a fulfilled and happy life. The Tao Te Ching is such a powerful and just unbelievable way of thinking. It's often regarded as this definitive narrative in which we can simply step into in order to be able to truly understand the world in which we work and live in today. Sometimes it's described as the definitive narrative, which somehow really gets people excited as they're looking to be able to achieve the things that they truly want to be able to achieve in life. I was very, very lucky that about 15 years ago, I was gifted a version of the Tao Te Ching. I dived straight into each and every single one of the verses, enchanted by each and every single one, excited by what I read, but I very quickly realized that actually this was not something that you read. This was something that you needed to live. You needed to be able to set off and lean into it wholeheartedly and with passion in order to be able to be curious about how the world works. The Tao Te Ching asks us to switch off from some of our self-narrative. It asks us simply to step forward into every moment of our life, to lean into them, to breathe. For the Tao Te Ching needs to be lived, to be learnt. Verse 1 of the Great Way throws us straight into that idea. It says that the Tao that can be named is not the true Tao. Now, there are those that feel as though somehow it is thrown straight into a place of mystery by the fact that we can name it, but we can't find it. But maybe actually what it's encouraging us to do is to simply embrace the moment, not to talk about it out loud, Maybe actually just to stop intellectualizing and hypothesizing about our world and simply to be able to step into each moment and breathe. To step into each moment and breathe. So as we do that, let me ask you some examples. Let me give you some examples. Let me ask you some questions now about how do we go about that when we switch off intellectualizing things and step into each moment and learn and breathe as we go through each moment in our life. Would you learn to ski from a DVD? Would you actually volunteer to be the very first patient of a medical student that had only ever learned to be able to perform surgery via Zoom? My thoughts are the answer is no. So how do we have the ability to truly embrace our life? How do you know what cold water actually feels like? How do you truly know what the excitement feels like of that first kiss, the tenderness of another human being's lips upon yours? You have to plunge into that moment and commit to it. And that's what the Tao is asking us to do in every single moment of our life. It's asking you to step into each moment, to breathe. Because the Tao, it needs to be lived, to be learned. Verse 2 takes that journey one step further. Verse 2 tells us that when we name beauty in the world, it ceases to become beautiful. Now, I realize there's a level of irony in that, but how many moments in life have you experienced when there'll be people that you know, people that you spend time with, are simply now holding up their phone, trying to capture that moment in order to be able to share it with someone in the future, to be able to try and convince you that they were there? Worse still is their experience of the moment whilst looking at it, whilst looking at something that just is passing them by. Do they actually make that moment less beautiful? Do they mean that they are now less present? Is there somehow, are they dialing down the meaning of that moment because they're not in it, because they haven't stepped forward, be present, to breathe, because the Tao needs to be lived, to be learned? The Tao asks us to be able to see the world beyond the simple notions of positive and negative, and everything else simply in between. The Tao asks you to recognize that it is your filters, it's your thinking, perception is projection that creates the way that you see the world. The Tao asks you at times to stop thinking, just to experience the world as it is, because you are not happy and you are not sad. They are simply emotions that you experience and potentially a label that you give yourself. The Tao encourages you to give yourself one simple label, a true label, is that you are all beautiful human beings who experience the world in such an exciting and vibrant way, and that we are more than any label that we could ever think about giving ourselves. So we experience the Tao today in English. It's a translation from ancient Chinese. And whilst the English language is a very, very beautiful thing, the Tao encourages us to recognize that it is language that influences our filters and the way that we see the world. So if I was to ask you all right now simply not to look at my left hand, then notice how those words create a point of focus for you. They draw your attention. Actually, the words that I'm using shape your reality in that moment. The Tao asks us to recognize that. It's just shaping your reality. It isn't actually your reality. So actually, we need to think about the words that we use and the stories that we tell to ourselves. So actually, whether you think you can or you think you can't, you are absolutely and utterly true. It is so right as we go on that journey. So one of the big things that we can actually really, truly learn from the Tao is to step beyond language, is to recognize that sometimes the story that you tell yourself is just a story. Gandhi said that we sit at the center of a circle without a circumference, unless we tell a story to ourselves which creates that circumference. How many stories do you tell yourself that create a set of limiting beliefs for you, that create, I don't know, a shot in the foot when it comes to living your true potential? Think about wisely about the stories that you tell yourself about who you are. So as a coach, I will tell you that actually that's the most important relationship. Whilst verse 11 tells us that we are all connected to all things at all times and all people, actually, as a coach, I will tell you that one of the most important relationships that you can ever invest in is the relationship that you have with yourself. We don't always think about that, but maybe we should really, truly embrace that idea Because what you say to yourself truly, truly matters. It is the thing that creates your limiting belief. It is the thing that potentially creates that circumference of the circle that stops you being able to live your true and full life. Verse 10 and verse 39 are also some of my favorites and some of my best. They talk about this idea of oneness, and they talk about this idea of wholeness, is that I am one and I am whole, and you are and we are, and this place right now simply is the most perfect it can ever be. Practically, what does that mean? Is that when I say yes to something, then maybe I'm saying no to something else if I need to consider things in the whole, in the round. So what does that mean for me in life, really? It means that if I say yes to another volunteering commitment in my community, then maybe I am saying no to more time at home. For you, maybe if you say yes to another bottle of beer, another glass of wine, or another gin and tonic at some point in time this evening, then maybe you are saying no to a clear head in the morning. So maybe actually we have a responsibility to be able to say no to some of that negative self-talk that we create for ourselves, to say no to self-doubt, because at that point in time when we say no to those things, we say yes to stepping into each moment, to breathing, to life. It's lived to be learned. You say yes to being the beautiful human being that you are. The Tao Te Ching asks us to be in action in every single moment of your life, to take feedback from the moments you're in, to pay attention to what's going on. What does that mean for us in real life? It means that we need to be more like the aircraft that sets off from New York to cross the Atlantic to get to Heathrow. I mean, what doesn't happen is that the aircrew don't simply go, right, it's over that way, and off they go. And suddenly, when they cross the Atlantic and they're at the other side, they're going, oh my word, we've missed Heathrow. Right, ladies and gentlemen, what we need to do is go all the way back to New York and start again. Because so many of us try and do that in life, to try and be able to do it perfect first time every time. If we're truly picking up the lesson from verse 40, then what we're doing is being more like the aircraft. We are adjusting because of air traffic control, because of the weather, adjusting our altitude and our direction. We are in every moment in our life to make sure that we are still pointing towards what we're trying to achieve. Why? Because we'll spend far longer on the journey with the company that we have on that journey than we ever will at the destination. Because once we've got a goal, it's gone and we're on. So just step into each moment in life, breathe, because the Tao, it needs to be lived, to be learned. I'm going to ask you to be in action right now in your concept with 3 simple words. For most of us in life, what we spend our time doing is doing stuff in order to be able to have things, in order then at some point in time to be the emotion that we've glued to the reward of the thing that we seek to have. So we do, we have, we be. If we were to say no to that, but to say yes to another way of thinking, is to be, and then to do, and then to have, what does that mean for us? If you were to choose right now to say it out loud to yourself, I am happy. Turn it into action and even say, I am happying. Put energy into it. When you say that, notice how it makes you smile. So it means that everything you do for the next few moments will have that golden thread of happiness running through it, which means that everything you have, as a consequence of whatever you do, will be happy. It will have and be sown from the seed of true happiness. So, of course, as the tiny dragon said to the panda, be, do, have. Because it is our relationship on this journey that is way more important than anything else that we can conceive of at this time. And it's such a powerful lesson from Lao Tzu and the Tao. So I've been a scholar of the Tao now for approximately 15 years. And I think about each and every single one of those 81 verses. What that culminates in for me is 2 simple, powerful questions. It allows me to be able to think about each and every single one of the 81 verses in any single moment of my life. Question 1 that I ask myself, it becomes part of a living meditation, a living mantra for me. Question 1 is, who am I being right now, right in this moment? Who am I? Question 2, who am I? Who do I need to be right now? Who do I need to be right now? Those 2 questions allow me to show up in any single moment of my life, to be able to connect to that moment and to be able to bring my best and most magnificent, authentic self to that moment. and anyone else that dares to ask those two questions. They allow us to set off on this amazing journey. It might surprise you right now that I'm not going to give the final word to Lao Tzu. I'm going to give the final word to another 20th century philosopher whose thoughts and ideas, I believe, totally and utterly reflect the concept of the Tao as we move forward in what we do. So I'm going to ask you all one question right now, one very simple question. Are you going to go through life, or are you going to grow through life? At the end of the day, the Tao Te Ching, it needs to be lived to be learnt. Be the beautiful human being that you are. Live your best and most authentic life. And of course, a life well lived has many, many lessons to learn from. The choice of what you choose to live on your journey through this world is yours.